Welcome to Fan4Racing Radio. I'm Fan4Racing Sharon, and joining me today is Chris Crichton and Jay Huseman. So we are here for our Rivalry, Penalties, and Challenge Hot Topic Sound Off, episode 2515, and I'm anticipating an interesting and lively discussion again.
So with those topics, I'm assuming it's me and Chris that have the rivalry. Sharon has the challenge of controlling us, and I don't know who gets the penalty.
Well, obviously me.
I do have everything listed in our private chat. Jay, do you want to start this week? Where are we going to start?
Well, I guess I'd say one of the bigger issues of the weekend was Carson Hocevar and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I don't know how much more of it came today other than fans in the media, but Carson Hocevar got second. He got there by being a little aggressive, as we've seen him be. I personally think had this been a couple other drivers, we wouldn't be talking about it, but right now it's Carson Hocevar, so we are.
Well, I don't think it's just because it's Carson Hocevar. I think they've been kind of back and forth with this for a while. Chris, what are your thoughts?
The Hocevar Stenhouse incident?
Yes.
I don't know. Hocevar's already gotten the name as a kind of a rough driver. We typically see this, a driver that has a lot of natural talent, and still trying to physique their own track talent, because there's obviously a major difference. We saw Kyle Busch straight from the door at Hendrick Motorsports blowing us away with the amount of talent the kid had, but he either wrecked or ran fifth, and it took him a minute to figure out how to win, figured out how to close. Hocevar knows that he's not in top grade equipment. He's got a lot to prove. He probably overdrives at times. Ricky's an old guard. He's an old guard now. He's been around a long time. But if we remember, Ricky wrecked a lot of race cars too. Ricky himself was a driver that drove with a lot of natural talent, but it took him, as a matter of fact, he's in the ride that he's in now because I don't know if he ever learned to control that side of him. So it's really not, I guess I don't have much input on the actual rivalry between the two, or if there even is as such. Stenhouse in his post-race interview, when his race was done, was basically said that, look, it's too expensive for me to hang around here and have something to say to him tonight, so he'll just wait till later on. A lot of times that later on comes at a place like Martinsville or something like that, and other times it's just a shot off the bow and a warning. Carson's going to continue to ruffle feathers. We have a driver that is a very talented race car driver that just went through this, and they've done everything they can to calm the old melon man down, but he keeps bouncing back for us. Ross can get himself into a lot of situations. But look, when you're, we want to give Carson a push, or a reckoning that maybe he's a little bit too reckless or so. But how many times have we seen Kyle Larson step on his own self in the last couple of years? I mean, even the best of the best at times overdrives or over complicates situations. That's natural with a driver that has a lot of talent. I think that what it really does show, and I'll pass it to you, Ms. Sharon, is that we're dealing with a driver that could very well be a superstar. He is a very talented race car driver, and proved that this weekend with a second place finish.
I agree with you. And I said earlier, I think I could argue both sides of this particular topic. Carson Hocevar is young. He's going through the same learning curve, as you've pointed out, as a number of other drivers. And some drivers are still going through that learning curve. Joey Logano always says that he becomes very selfish when he gets behind the wheel, and he wants to be the winner. So Carson Hocevar has that same drive. He makes no apologies about it, very similar to Joey Logano. And I think that does ruffle a few feathers. the two of them will talk about it. I don't think that Hocevar did it intentionally in this particular case. I could be wrong, but it happened. And the fact that these two have kind of gone side to side and door to door before this, and this isn't the first incident between the two of those drivers. The last time, I think Ricky was so upset, he stayed at the track and just let it brew for a while, and they got together. I do think that Carson Hocevar is going through that learning curve. At some point, somebody, I think a lot of drivers have gone up to him and kind of talked to him, but he doesn't care really what they have to say. He is on his own march, and he's going to march to his own drummer and do his own thing. But eventually he's going to grow up. At least I hope he does. I agree. I think he's an extremely talented driver. He just needs to temper himself a little bit, I think. I think he gets a little overly anxious, and he's just going through that learning curve, I think is basically what's going on. And I don't think anybody wants him to change necessarily, other than just tempering himself a little bit. But I think everybody recognizes that he's a talented driver. If you looked at the rest of his race, he didn't have any other incidents for the entire rest of the race. So that happened fairly early in the race with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Everybody else, he seemed to be able to pass very cleanly. So I would be interested in knowing how this turns out. You want to be a fly on the wall and hear what the two of them have to say to one another sometimes. But Jay, I'll kind of lean towards you now and get your thoughts.
Well, and I'm going to try and pull what both of you have already said to back up what I said to begin with, that I think it's because of who the driver, primary one being Carson Hocevar, and the other one being Ricky Stenhouse. If you both watch that race, Alex Bowman drifted up the track, put a guy in the wall. It's not being talked about. Why? Because Bowman doesn't typically do that. Chris mentioned Kyle Larson. We've seen him have a couple throughout this year of just overdrove it, lost his own car, or, did it himself and took somebody else out with it. It's overlooked when it's certain drivers. Now, I think you both kind of said it, of Hocevar has established having that reputation. I get it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the post-race was saying, as a fan and a broadcaster, he likes it, gives him something to talk about. It's exciting. But as a competitor, he's saying it's a little over-aggressive. That's right. But where's the line? Because, and listening to Dave Moody, who is referring back to an interview with Luke Lambert earlier in the morning, said that this pass had actually been attempted multiple times, and Stenhouse had cut him off a couple of times. So there again, who's the driver at fault? Now, and he said it wasn't the quarter panel, it was from the bumper, but there again, is Hocevar wrong as a driver by standing his ground and holding his line if he's got that run to get his nose inside there? Yeah, maybe not. And again, Chris kind of hit on it of who's Stenhouse to be the one to talk about somebody about rough driving, So I really do feel it was a racing incident. Understand why there's the impression of blame Hocevar, because again, he has caused some, and I would not deny that. The other thing, Sharon, before I turn it back over to Chris, you hit on I think you both kind of did, Chris, with the organization he's with. Having a fast car, knowing he's got a capability to get up there and contend and have a shot, as he kept saying. It wasn't a great shot. He said he was still out there ways in front of him, but had that shot and finished second. He's used to running in the back in 20th and battling for every inch they got to get. As you start racing up front with a fast car, you got to adjust a little bit. And Junior said that. He said he could have checked up and given Stenhouse that break. Well, now if you go back, and we can't unless you have the in-car cam, how many breaks did he give Stenhouse before he said, hey, enough is enough? I've tried 3 times and you're just not giving me room. It's time. So I don't think it's as big a deal. And again, I understand Stenhouse was mad. He had a decent car too. He had been around the top 10. It now puts him outside the bubble in points. So there's a lot for him to not be happy with the whole situation. And I get that. But again, I go back to Alex Bowman. How come we're not talking about him taking himself and other cars out?
Well, and that's the answer there. Carson has ruffled some feathers. Some people have taken notice that this kid has got a little bit of talent. I remember the laughs and the jokes when Carson first come in the Truck Series. The guy weighed about $120. He's sitting 6'4" or something. I mean, just a tall, lanky feller. Didn't look like he was out of high school yet, and wasn't really, I don't think, taken seriously. Well, this is 4 or 5 years later, and now people realize that Carson is a potential threat to their job. We've seen this when Ernie Irvan come in, and Ernie Irvan really upset the garage with his super speedway racing tactics, and he put people in vulnerable situations. But the one thing that was undeniable was Ernie Irvan had talent. And you wouldn't be in the ride that you're in if you didn't have talent. And so Carson's the best thing for Carson Hocevar, the best thing for to happen to him is not a caution come out at the end that bunched the field up so he could have wrecked and ruined his finish. Because a second place finish is a confidence builder. And that's going to allow him to focus. He had some odd, I think it was 60 something laps or whatever there at the end to track down the leaders. He stayed in second. Nothing happened. All of that during his entire, last probably 10, 15, 20 laps, he's like, if something happens, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? So he's having to process all that. Well, while he's processing all that, what we don't realize as students of the world and students of racing is each of these positions, each of these laps that you click off, the driver is gaining a little bit more confidence that the equipment's not going to fail, a little bit more confidence in his driving ability. It's not like he just popped up in second place for 3 minutes and then got into a wreck and all heck broke loose. So what Carson was able to build up is a little bit of confidence, knowing, hey, I've got a fast race car. I took care of my race car. I come home a second place finish. I don't expect him to be a Ted Musgrave, right? I mean, there's several drivers out there that got Matt Diamondetto, the latest guy. He got a couple of second place, third place finishes, never was able to capitalize. I don't see that from Carson. I think that this is the learning experience he needs. And as I said, the last thing that he needed at that point in time was for a late caution to come out so that he look, if he would have wrecked the field trying to get the win, we would all been like, we can't believe it. He did it again, but as I said, that position will probably come later on, how to be the closer. Right now, it was just learning how to get to the finish line and taking care of the car. You had a second place car. You brought it home second place. So that's the up and up that I think the crew chief and the team and the driver can build on. Miss Sharon.
Yeah, I agree. But when I looked at the points report, it dawned on me why Ricky Stenhouse was so upset.
Of course.
Carson Hocevar is 17th in points. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 18th in points. 16 drivers are going to advance into the playoffs in the Cup Series. There is 2 points between the 2 drivers. 2 points.
Wow.
Okay. So this is what we saw is some intensity about trying to get into the playoffs and make up that ground. Ricky Stenhouse, who knows how he would have finished? We don't really know, but he was certainly hoping to gain more ground than to have the finish that he had in this race. His finish, by the way, in this race, Ricky Stenhouse, I'll pull it up here in just a second. He finished dead last, 39th in this race. So he took a hit in points to now be 2 points behind Carson Hocevar. So I can understand where Ricky Stenhouse is coming from too. When you look at that, plus he has an organization that can't recover as quickly as some other organizations when they take a big hit like that. And I understand what you guys are all saying, and I tend to agree. Like I said, I can argue both sides of this one. I tend to agree with a lot of what you guys say because you bring up some excellent points. But I just wanted to put a little bit more perspective on why Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is upset about finishing dead last. He was taken out of that race on lap 110, and there were 300 laps in the race. So he didn't even get to the halfway point with that race. And, all the effort and everything that goes in to getting his car ready, it's not the same as a Hendrick Motorsports. They put a lot of effort in as well, but they have so many more resources for everything that they do. So I kind of see both sides of it. Yeah, Carson's a really talented guy. Ricky's trying to protect his position. He knows, now he knows there's just 2 points between the two of them. So he's going to be even more protective, I think, as we move forward here. Jay?
Yeah, well, and I think you're right. You finished with what I was going to say. If you think it's bad now, wait until push comes to shove and its playoffs are on the line. Now, you pointed out a good thing, and I understood what Dale Jr.'s point there in making that was of, could have cut him a break. But if what Luke Lambert said, who is Carson Hocevar's crew chief, so obviously there's going to be some bias, of said, hey, this was third, fourth lap in a row that we've tried to get by him. Again, we don't know that. The driver obviously felt, hey, I've been here. You keep cutting me off. It's time to stop. So I think it'll kind of work itself out. And I think that's why, Sharon, you said you can argue both sides of it or be on either side of it because it really is that close. Like I said, if it were a couple other drivers, I think it would just get labeled as a racing incident. Yeah, this guy could have left him a lane. This guy could have checked up and let him go, especially that early in a race. And that does make a difference. It wasn't for the win. I know so that got brought up. I know, Sharon, you're not necessarily more in favor of it then, but, if it is the last lap with the race on the line is a big difference than lap 100 out of a 300-lap race. And there is some truth to that.
The bump and run and the dump and run.
And this really, honestly, like I said, I think it was one of those just at the right moment in the corner or whatever, because it really didn't. Like I said, I don't feel like he ran over him. That got said during the post race. I'm like, I don't think he ran over him. Did he hit him? Was it in the bumper from behind? Yes. But like I said, I don't feel like he went in there with no brakes and just ran into him either. Right. And that's why I said, to me, it really was a racing incident. What's being applied is, well, how does Carson Hocevar race? Now, you both have said it, very talented. I think we're going to see some big things from him in the future. And we saw this in the Truck Series. Mm-hmm. Is there some growing and maturity to do there? Absolutely. Go see Joey Logano, because I think he's still working on it, if you will. Ross Chastain, there's some that are there that I don't feel have completely mastered it either. So I think it'll work itself out, honestly. Like I said, the last thing I wanted to say, though, was somebody, and I don't want to say any names because I don't remember who it was, about his post race. Oh, he should be a little more, Steve Letarte. That was the one thing he wanted to see, was him be a little more apologetic and diffuse the situation. He said, I'm not going to comment because I haven't seen a replay yet. I know we made contact. And again, I'm sure he felt he had his reasons of, hey, whatever. But he actually said, I'm not going to comment or talk about it until I've seen a replay. I thought that was one of the best answers you could give. Maybe I was in the wrong. In the heat of the moment, I was going to go, but maybe I was in the wrong. Maybe I should have. And he didn't make any kind of comment on it. Ross Chastain, on the other hand, has always come out with, well, I'm not here to make friends and whatever. He wasn't to that level. So I thought that critique was a little harsh. I thought he did a good job with his interview. And you could see too, though, the disappointment. He knew he had a fast car, and like I said, he just kept saying a shot, and he's like, not saying it was a great shot, but we had a shot.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. I think we went around twice there. Chris, what's our next topic?
Give me just a second here. Let's see. Let's do penalties for AJ Allmendinger pre-race and Daniel Dye. I didn't catch any of that.
Okay.
Wow.
Well,
did you have a nice nap, Chris? How did you not?
Yeah, how did you miss all that?
The AJ, I mean, I don't. Well, we had racing over the weekend. I did not know. Was this last week or this week?
No, that was this week. He had to go to the back and do a drive-through penalty. And honestly, I don't think.
Okay,
yeah,
I do remember
that was Allmendinger.
Let's start with that one.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I'd like to hear a little bit about that penalty.
Okay, hold on. I'm typing here. Why don't you go ahead and start, Jay?
Okay, I got a question. Is knucklehead a fair word to use here? Somebody's a knucklehead. From what I've read, and let me say that from what I read, I was not there. I'm not on the team, but apparently some adjustments were made after pre-tech qualifying, prior to practice and qualifying, and that's an absolute no-no. I mean, again, I know that of whatever. So NASCAR spotted something. They ran them back through tech, which they passed. But they were being penalized for making adjustments in between the two, which weren't allowed. And to me, that it's just not smart. I don't know how else to put it. Of that, NASCAR's watching. We've seen multiple. Sharon and I talked about this last week. It seems like we have seen more penalties this year all of a sudden in both series because Daniel Dyes is from the Xfinity Series, but I say I'm not sure if it's done because again they qualified, they took away the qualifying spot, start from the tail end. They had to do the drive-through penalty. From my understanding, I had read somewhere and I could not find a secondary confirmation, but the car chief that was ejected as the team member also lost his hard card for the season. Now I haven't been able to find that. Sharon, I haven't been able to find that back or in any other location. So. But the first article I read on it did say that. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. But I think there may be some more forthcoming Tuesday or Wednesday with this. Because like I said, that's a serious no-no. You pass tech and then you adjust something. Yeah, that's bad. You're a knucklehead.
Yeah, I agree. Knucklehead is a good word because they went through the inspection. And after the inspection, they made a modification. So that that's a big no-no. You're not supposed to, make any modifications of any sort after you've gone through inspection. So whoever did that really needs to be taken aside and talked to. Again, we don't know all of the details. And I do think that there is more coming on that with regard to the penalty. It's a big no-no. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. And if they did take his hard card away, that could possibly mean that he's going to lose his job over it. So it really wasn't worth it. So we don't know. That is speculation at this point. Do you want to say where you first read it, Jay?
I can't remember, and that's why I couldn't even find it back to look at it and use that for one source, let alone, again, I was trying to find a second source. Everything else I've read just said he was ejected for the weekend.
Yeah. That's what typically does happen. But I will say, we've been advocating if you're caught once, that's an accident, twice is coincidence, third time's a habit. So I don't know if this is an escalation or not, but I'm anxious to see what NASCAR does here because this, I think, is a very serious violation of the policies to make a modification after you've already gone through inspection. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, can we allude to what that modification was? Do we have any?
It had to do with the underside. I was trying to
The
find
splitter, the after passing.
Like, was there an instance where maybe the
I
car
got you.
was it maybe the car was damaged in a practice or a
Nope.
qualifying?
Because it says after passing pre-race qualification inspections, during practice adjustments, the team made an unapproved adjustment to the splitter. So the car was returned during or prior to practice. The car was returned to the cup garage, run back through the scanning, the underbody scanning, and the car was
either NASCAR saw what they were doing, or somebody whispered in NASCAR's ear, "Hey, we know, we've seen this going on beforehand." Most of the time, in any situation.
Sorry, Chris, can I jump in here?
Yeah.
On the one that's on J-Ski, it says under the unapproved adjustment, the 10 minutes of practice, car chief Jaron Antley was ejected for the remainder of the weekend. Antley's hard card was also confiscated. Now, it doesn't say there for the rest of the year, but if they were kicking him out, they wouldn't need to confiscate it either. So, again, there's a little bit more confirmation that I think he's in trouble.
Yeah, that's interesting. I doubt it was the first time, in these situations. And I can definitely doubt that he was the only one. Once again, we're talking about colleague racing. They're not the most financial stable company. They are trying to speaking speculatively, they were trying to find an advantage somewhere at all costs. And this one, it sounds about as nefarious as jet engine fuel in Michael Waltrip's Toyotas. There's just things that you don't do, but you also have to understand when you don't have the money invested into your employees, the way that some of these higher mark teams do, they don't necessarily understand the repercussions of what they've done, right? Like, oh, well, I just simply did this and I knew it was against the rules, but they don't understand how much of a rule break that is, or how severe the penalty would be. And we think, oh well, they've got somebody, they've got people that are reading them the rule books and stuff. Man, I've been in racing long enough. Some people don't know the rule book unless you tell it to them. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case when you get all the way up to NASCAR. I'm sure that there's guys who are very well educated in what is and what isn't allowed. But a lot of times it's the penalty side that they really just don't understand. Like, this is going to cost you your job. Anybody, just as Tim Cindric, I don't believe thought for 1 minute his job would have been cost over a part that was unapproved. So we are at that era now in racing where we want big heads when we find out somebody's cheating, and in that kind of effort, the audacity right there in front of people's noses to make those kind of adjustments. First of all, I don't even think the splitter's supposed to be messed with at all, right, Jay? I mean, that's something that's completely off bounds. So somebody may have thought that they were helping the company, but in the end, like Tim Cindric, when you play with fire, you get burned, and you're probably not going to have a job on Monday morning, which it's Monday evening now. So I'm sure he knows whether or not he's going to be employed for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And then, we'll just wait for NASCAR to come out with their commentary about
anytime
this.
They repossess your hard card,
that's
a serious infraction, a very serious infraction.
And I'm sure when they took it, because I've been in this position, they take the ID, they take the hard card until pending further investigation. So I'm sure NASCAR has taken the time to do their due diligence, and then maybe get that back to him if they don't fire him or they notify him and say it's over.
Are they? Is there a suspected penalty for points for the 16 team? What is that something we're hanging on to find out later? Or
well, they did a lot.
Would be detrimental for AJ, who's right now Average finish 21.1, starting 15.5. I hadn't looked to see
He's
where he is
seven.
at points.
He's 7 points out of the playoffs right now after then finishing 20th.
Wow. See, I mean, that would be detrimental to their season if they get a 50 or 100 point
Yeah.
penalty
Yeah.
there. And I would almost expect that to be. So, AJ would definitely have to back himself in with a win. And that's unfortunate because you're taking these smaller teams like Hayek and like Colleague, and they're being very resourceful with their equipment. They're getting finishes. They're ahead of some third and fourth teams. Third and fourth upper teams, the tier one type teams. So it's detrimental for their season, but was the risk worth the reward? Yeah, as long as you don't get caught. So once you get caught, you have to pay the piper. And it's probably going to cost AJ, a chance to race in the chase here. Well, halfway to go. We're halfway through the season, regular season here. So,
Yeah, it's going to be, depending on what NASCAR does. Now, they did a lot during the race, if I remember correctly. Is that correct, Jay? They did a pass.
obviously,
He had to one lap. They held him for one lap. He had to start at the end of the field. Plus, they held him for one lap during the race. And didn't they held him
10 minutes out of practice as well. Yep, 10 minutes out of practice as well.
Yeah, 10 minutes out of practice. They held him for one lap, and he had to start at the rear of the field. They vice versa. He started at the end of the field, and then they held him for one lap. So that he started the race a lap down, in other words. So it'll be interesting to see how NASCAR follows up on that, but I know they weren't happy.
have we gotten back to the point where cheating is worth trying? I mean, is that where we're at now with these other teams that have had such large penalties wavered against them that, hey, these guys are already behind the ball? So that kind of gives us a chance is cheating the new top 15? I mean, are we at that point again? Hopefully not. Hopefully NASCAR will come in and stop this immediately. One thing that I thought this car was going to do was really stop the shenanigans. But this year there's been an uptick in it for sure, and it's just we're either gonna go back to the old way, or we're gonna continue to be the police of this. And I would prefer to stay on the side of policing it and keeping these things from happening.
Jay?
Yeah, no, and that goes back to Daniel Dye. I mean, that one there's not really a whole lot to talk about. I haven't heard an appeal yet, but not making height or.
I think they said they were not penalized. Daniel Dye.
Okay.
I want to say I read somewhere where they're not going to appeal.
The big thing here is with both of these teams, and AJ Allmendinger on the Cup side mentioned being 7 out, especially if they do happen to take further action. We're talking about that, moving them outside of a range of one race to be able to make the playoffs. And I think it was Richard Childress a couple of years ago with Austin Dillon talked about that costing millions of dollars if you're in the playoffs or not. So that's huge, especially for a team like Colleague, who, as Chris has mentioned, is not the top team, doesn't have unlimited resources, but they've been having just a solid year. Daniel Dye in the Xfinity Series, there was part of that. He was the head of the rookie pack just outside the playoff bubble, and now he's at the bottom. Chris is right. It's got to be where it's not worth it, and I think we are to that point.
Yeah, this is what NASCAR had to say. NASCAR, from Jeff Gluck, NASCAR has released the update on Allmendinger's team penalty. Number 16 post-qualifying update. After passing PQ inspections, practice and qualifying inspections during practice, adjustments the team made and unapproved adjustments to the splitter. Prior to practice, the car was returned to the Cup garage and it was rerun across the USS underbody scanning station. The repair adjustments were made and the car was back into inspection intolerance before practice and qualifying. The unapproved adjustment resulted in the following. The team was held 10 minutes at the start of practice, will lose pit stall selection for the event. The car chief, Jaron Antley, has been ejected for the remainder of the weekend, and Antley's hard card was also confiscated. That's from NASCAR. Additionally, the number 16 will start at the rear of the field and perform a stop-and-go penalty before taking the green flag. So that was directly from NASCAR, Jay.
Okay, yeah, I knew I had found that one on J-Ski, so.
I couldn't find it on J-Ski, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that was exactly what I read from J-Ski. So now whether that's for the year or not, and again, Chris, you asked that question of, no, I have not heard NASCAR say they're going to look further into it or not, whatnot. But again, that confiscation of the hard card is what really caught my attention, because we normally don't see that. And like I said, I feel like that is an indication of some further things coming, but we will have to wait and see. Let them do their Monday, Tuesday job and come out with it Tuesday or Wednesday.
And then from Bob Pockris 11 hours ago, he said Colleague Racing will not appeal the Daniel Dye DQ from the Xfinity race on Saturday at Nashville. The Dye car was too low in the rear, both left rear and right rear. So that was from Bob Pockris, who's usually
can't be making these mistakes. Can't be making these mistakes.
I'm so tired of hearing about a driver disqualified too. It's just
exactly.
It's and I don't want to make it okay to do what they're doing. It's just when do you get the sign? Like, is it going to take sitting the driver out for 2 races or something to that? When does the penalty affect the competition? You know, when does it affect payroll? You know, obviously, I don't think until we start sitting drivers down who really have no control over the situation. If I was a driver and I got sat because my team, the next time I signed a contract, I would make sure it was in my contract that I would be get granted a release the moment that I ever had to deal with that kind of situation, right? I mean, we want to protect the drivers in this, and this is obviously something coming out of the shop of Colleague Racing, and I'm highly disappointed. I want it to come to a stop. I want the stiffest penalties possible. I would hate to lose AJ for a race or two, but at the same time, we've got to control this. We've gone too far into it. It's got to stop. We've got to quit having a fan at the racetrack who thinks their driver finished somewhere only to get into the car and get 5 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles down the road and find out that driver did not pass tech. I can't stand it in our form of racing. I hate it for the fans that's up in the upper salons of racing. Last year, Alex Bowman broke my heart. He ruined my fantasy league. I'm still mad. I could throw things because I was leading it. I had the most points, and I got kicked out all because he got 0 points for a DQ that slid Joey Logano into a playoff system that eventually worked out for him to win a championship. So this and that should have opened up eyes there at the Hendrick camp to not do silly stuff like that, silly shenanigans that don't pay off.
Well, this is a change process that we're in. NASCAR has stated they are looking to change the culture. Changing culture is not an easy task because you've got team owners, you've got the crew chief, part of the team with the pit crew and everything, or just crew members, and you've got the driver. A lot of times the driver's kept completely in the dark. You've got team owners saying do everything you can to make sure, these drivers are given a car. I think with the exception of Roger Penske, most of them are willing to turn an eye to what the crews are doing if it means that their driver is going to win the race and advance. But it is a risk versus reward. I think a lot of times what's so weird about all of this is I think a lot of times the driver's kept in the dark. They don't know. They just get in the car and drive it, and they don't necessarily know when something is going on behind the scenes, if you will. So I hate to see the driver get penalized for it, but there's just no other way for that to work, because it's a team sport. And so if the team does something that hurts the driver, they have to pay the consequences for it, because you can't allow that team to advance and everything when they've been cheating. So NASCAR just has to stick to their guns. Jay?
No, I agree. And I think one thing you hit on of changing that culture, I think Roger Penske, as I said when this happened, I admire him. He's changing it from the ownership side. Yes, it was as part of the series of Indianapolis, but he did within his own organization. And I think that really does help change the culture and set the standard. Now, when you're talking about
I just said.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Did he set the precedent? Did Penske set the precedent by firing
Absolutely.
Ken Cindric?
Absolutely did.
I think
Absolutely.
He did.
And hopefully we see that then of that being a standard upheld to. Now, Sharon, you were going with the drivers kept in the dark, and I'm not disputing that. The driver doesn't always necessarily know what's going on with the car and whatnot. But you also said it's a team sport, and I'll use Carson Hocevar since we talked about him, or Austin Dillon. When a driver does something out on the track that costs him a good finish or a race or some points because of their aggressiveness, the team takes a hit, be like, man, we worked our butts off to get that car up front. You just took it away from us. So it is a team thing. I think back to Justin Allgaier with the decision he made to stay on the track, and it cost him. A championship team said, it's all right. We could have done this. You did that. No finger pointing. It was, hey, we're a team. So, but I'm with you both. Of the culture is changing, and it's NASCAR's drawing their line in the sand for sure.
Yeah, and I'm happy about that. Chris?
No, I mean, I don't think I have anything else to it. It seems to be an organizational thing. That, as we just said, did Penske set the precedent? I think that that's where we should be. Nobody can handle it better than the captain. He even sat down with Jamie Little, had a discussion there, so he didn't run from it. He wasn't scared of it. He understood what it means to the organization in the whole, the entire program. That's the little things that these people running these smaller teams or these race teams, they've got to take notice to what Penske did there and follow through. That's the only way we're going to be able to combat it, is if people lose their jobs.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's time that we have the team owners do that sort of thing. And Roger Penske is a good role model with what he did. I will say this. Shoot, what was it? I had something else I wanted to say. With regard to Daniel Dye, we'll have to wait and see what NASCAR does. Usually on Tuesday or Wednesday, they'll come out with additional penalties. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it probably again next Monday because NASCAR, the fact that this is happening so often. And when you think about it, Allmendinger's from Colleague Racing, so is Daniel Dye. So there's 2 penalties in one weekend where they've been caught. So I think NASCAR needs to come down with the hammer. And I kind of am anticipating that that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a hammer that comes down, because when it comes to ride height and weight, they really give these teams a chance. They'll let the car sit and wait for a while and try to let it settle, or, they try to give the benefit of the doubt. And if after 2 or 3 tries, it's still not hitting the tolerance level, then they've got to come down with a hammer in those cases. I really think it's time. It's what do we want to say? Penalty time or something. Not high time, but penalty time. High time.
There you go.
Anything more from you, Jay?
No, I agree with that. I'm not sure there with Daniel Dye. I don't think there'll be anything more, because again, it was, hey, it didn't make height. It's a DQ. That one is pretty much, I think, is a done deal. That was the penalty. with AJ Allmendinger, that one, the fact that, and I know they were aggressive with the practice time and the one lap stop and go at the start of the race. But if it was again especially between the pre-race quali or tech and then practice and whatnot, again, I'm embarrassed, and I'm not even a part of that team. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's so embarrassing, is right. For the team, the crew chief has to be embarrassed by that as well.
But we're trying to compare old NASCAR to new NASCAR, right? Old NASCAR, you had a tire changer who would lean into the body of the race car to knock a dent in it
Body
to give them more
checking,
air.
yeah.
Right, and now we're so upset over a splitter, right? But in all honesty, we understand now that the integrity of the sport is more important. You have Major League Baseball players who are refused the Hall of Fame, players that carried the league like Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire. They are not allowed into the Hall of Fame because they were caught in a scandal. We still know about Deflategate, okay? Tom Brady taking a little air out of his balls, okay? Those are all things that we go back to and allude to, that racing is a serious business, and if we're going to be taken serious, we have to cut the shenanigans, and there has to be big penalties for people who want to draw outside those lines, and there's just no room for it. And I think I've said enough on that.
When you're in the big leagues, that's the way it is. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay.
I hate to have to bring it up because he was one of my favorite players. You missed one there from the Chicago Cubs, Sammy Sosa, when him and McGwire had their battle. And trust me, that's one of those where as a fan of the Cubs and Sammy, I mean, just severe disappointment.
Right.
Yeah, lifelong Cub fan here.
They carried baseball in 96, 97, 98. I mean, that was...
Oh, no doubt.
That was after the strike, and baseball needed it. And that's why to this day, I've petitioned that there was a different time in baseball than where we are now. And those guys deserve the Hall of Fame because they were competing against each other. And at that point in time, it was kind of an open, unwritten law. Like, if you want to go back, players have been using performance enhancing drugs for a very long time, whether it was
it's time to
street drug or a pharmaceutical drug. But now we're at an area in sports where sports is worth a lot of money. DW make $40,000 a year driving a race car, winning a cup championship, got $100 prize one time and was happy for it, right? I mean, unreal. But now these guys make a lot of money. The sport is got a lot of eyes on it, and it's just to that point to where we can't accept that.
You're exactly right. Okay, I guess it's my turn now, huh?
Sure.
Oh, Chris, thank you. That was really cool. You posted on the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think you posted in the private chat.
Oh,
so you want to go to the comments.
Oh, okay. There we go.
I appreciate the intention there.
Right. Okay, join the chat.
Okay. Next topic. Let's see. No particular order. Okay. Well, going in order. How about the infield season challenge for the 32 car field? I'm kind of looking forward to this. Are you guys familiar with what's going on with that?
I don't know if you were, Sharon. I feel kind of bad about this because we should have talked about this already. I knew we said we would as it got closer. I didn't realize all the rules that went to it. Nashville was the final race to determine the 32.
Yes.
The next 3 races on Prime are going to set averages. The average over the next 3 is where the seeding will come from. Yeah. So I felt bad we didn't talk about it already. Going into it in our preview.
The actual competition is for the TNT races, the 5 races that TNT will cover, which will include, it starts at Atlanta on June 28th, includes Atlanta, Chicago, Sonoma, Dover, and Indianapolis. The prize is $1 million.
Yeah, so with that, and I know it kind of got talked about, and that's where I found out all the rules. and Brad Keselowski extended it this past weekend, but is in that 32nd spot. Going into the weekend, it was him in 32nd over Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst actually slid back to 35th. Shane Van Gisbergen and Cole Custer moved up, but not enough. So Brad Keselowski in by the skin of his teeth. And now, again, the seating will be set. Average over the next 3 races might get him in a better seating position rather than going head-to-head right off the bat with William Byron, who right now clearly will be the standard because with only 1 win, he's still leading the points over Kyle Larson, who had another rough day. So I think it's great. I know Denny Hamlin wants to take credit for it, and he supposedly had done things for the past 2 years. I'll even give him that. If you're the one that made NASCAR do it, good on you. I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's an interesting thing to pair with TNT for their 5-race stretch all the way around. I think it's a good thing. From the industry side, we all know I'm not a college basketball fan, but I get involved in the March Madness tournament. You fill out your bracket, you make some bets with buddies, whatever. So, I just think it's a huge attention draw to racing, even if it is for those 5 weeks and then nobody else cares again. But just as Amazon's doing, get you in there, let you see what you're missing, and hook some of them. So I think it's a great idea. Good job, Denny Hamlin.
Okay, Chris?
Well, first of all, we've had the Winston Million before, right? Where, certain tracks were laid out on the schedule, and if you could win the Triple Crown, you were basically offered $1 million. I think Bill Elliott got his nickname, the $1 Million Bill, because he was one of the first to achieve this. It's also been used in Xfinity Series as a dash for cash. So it's not a new concept, but I do want to give Denny credit because basically he looked at a bracket that the NCAA does with their basketball, and they said, hey, we could do this in NASCAR. And that's where we messed up. Because NASCAR always has a way of overcomplicating things. And I wish that I could play you a 5-minute rant by my buddy Taz Taylor, but unfortunately it had so many F-bombs and other it's not appropriate for listening to anywhere else besides the private chat that it was sent in. But basically what he was able to say, and what I'll use from his rant, is that basically, and I agree with it, NASCAR overcomplicates things. So now you want an average fan to understand that the cutoff valve was this weekend. There's going to be drivers like Shane Van Gisbergen. It's not a 36 car field. Why? Why is it not 36? Right? There's your first question. Why is it only 32? Why did we have a build up to where they're going to be? Now we have a seeding procedure. So the next 3 races is based off of seeding. And right. Is that what the NCAA does? No. You either make it into the March Madness or you don't. And it kind of plays out from there. So did they overcomplicate things? I believe so. Will we get eventually through all this and get into the game itself that I believe is going to be really good for NASCAR because it keeps people watching right in the middle of the season. It gives the racers something to race for. It'll give us something to talk about here because, of course, content is king, right? So where I'm bashing NASCAR saying you made it overcomplicated, this is a double-edged sword for people like us who come on here and want to talk for 3 hours about NASCAR because without something silly shenanigan like this, we wouldn't have much to talk about. So it'll give us some content. It'll give some hype. I understand that. So this kind of feels like the play-in tournament for NBA. Everybody kind of scratches their head and they're like, well, wait a minute. Why do they have a play-in tournament for the playoff system for the back marker teams? If they're bad, they're bad. They don't deserve in the playoffs, right? But what it does is it gives your guy a chance to, your fan from whatever town, it gives you a something to play with in this end of the season type of thing. Look, in baseball, when the Braves stink, you know it halfway through the year, and you're not going to go to the playoffs, and it is what it is. Most of the time, the Braves keep you on the edge of the seat until September, so that's always kind of a good thing. They have a pretty good track record. But if you're the Colorado Rockies, you're already betting on next year. So that is the one thing. In football, they only play 17 games, so you go on a 5-game winning streak. You can start 0-3 and go on a 5-game winning streak, and now you're 5-3, right? With only 17 games to play. So it does kind of fit. I see where, the overcomplication is annoying for us diehard race fans, but the average fan's probably not even going to try to pick up on this until we get into that 5-race stretch. It'll be interesting to see who is and who isn't, but it also is kind of discouraging that we've already eliminated some drivers like a Shane Van Gisbergen, who maybe this was something that we needed for his eyes, for people that were from Australia and overseas. Now they don't have a reason to kind of tune in for that certain thing. So it'll also be interesting when we can fill out our brackets, because I believe this is a bracket challenge, and so I'm kind of left in the dark of when all of that will go about. But I guess it has to do with in 3 races from this week, right? So maybe y'all can fill me in on that.
Yeah, Michigan, Mexico City, and Pocono. So I think I have the answer for why.
What odd
30.
tracks to have a play in? What odd tracks to have a play in? Mexico, Michigan, and Pocono. I mean, geez Louise.
I know, it is. 2 thoughts here. Okay. First of all, I think I know why it's 32 cars and not 36. If you divide 32 by 2, you have 16. So if you match up all the drivers and you've got your 16
that's simple math. Yeah. You go down to over the 5 races, you had to go with the 32.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's the reason why it's 32 and not 36. The other thing is that I think that they chose these particular races, the prime portion and TNT portion, because it's such a huge change from what we've had in the past. We've not had prime video before. We've not had TNT. Well, we have had TNT before, but not recently. So to really highlight and get viewers to tune in via the free subscription, 30-day trial video, and then to watch on TNT, this was intended to kind of spur viewership during this stretch of the season. So I think that's what this is all about. If Denny Hamlin came up with that idea to kind of help spur viewership during this stretch, I think it was a fairly good idea. I haven't seen the bracket yet. Have any of you seen the bracket yet? I'm just kind of speculating here that they're going to match up drivers and see who beats who. Yeah.
Right. It'll be set once. We got to wait these 3 races. But if at the end of the 3 races they were listed as they are now, first race would be William Byron versus Brad Keselowski, Kyle Larson versus Noah Gragson. And then whichever one of those does better moves on to that next round. It's really simple. You beat the driver you're paired up against. If you both finish 35th and 36th, whoever was 35th advances, so as long as you beat the driver you're paired up against.
So then you're going to pare it down to 16 right after that first race. Then it's going to pare down to 8. And then it's going to pare down to the 4, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I was kind of envisioning it being a little bit different, like the bottom 2 would be paired against each other and on up the bracket. Did you see that somewhere listed that's how they're going to do it?
No, it's the way that Jay said. It's going to be like, seated from first to 32nd, and
where did you see it?
What you don't want is William Byron to get into a wreck or Kyle Larson to get into a wreck in one of these events, but that's how you're going to get somebody from the 10th or the 8th, 7th to 10th that's going to probably be in the finals there because, certain things are going to happen to certain drivers. It's just the way it is. Mexico, Michigan, and Pocono, anything can happen at those tracks. Those are typically tracks well run by the other guys. So they don't put much emphasis, Penske and Gibbs and whatnot. They put a lot of emphasis on tracks that they're going to see in the playoffs.
So it almost, go ahead.
Yeah, this gives those smaller teams a chance to invest into these tracks because they feel like they have an advantage to beat, the Penske's, to beat the Hendricks and the Gibbs at these types of tracks. This is going to be their ticket into the playoffs. So it's really going to make things kind of, you go look at the normal average finishes of places like Pocono and Michigan, and you're going to see names like Alex Bowman. Mexico City's a toss-up. It's a road course, so you would expect your road course guys to do good, which is kind of a shame for Shane Van Gisbergen because what if that guy goes out and wins, and we don't even have him in our playoff bracket?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. That's what I don't understand about it. But, there again, we'll probably wind up with somebody who's maybe 5th or 10th in points that winds up actually winning this thing instead of one of your top dogs because just typically these tracks that we're going to are not going to be dominated by the front row guys from, a Hendrick, Gibbs, or a Penske.
Jay?
Well, you were talking about the bracket of, that's the way any type of seeding, you think about any sports playoffs, you have the seeding 1 through 8 or whatever it be, you get the number 1 versus the bottom 1, whatever it be. So
I just didn't know if you saw it in writing somewhere.
Honestly, I can't say that I have, but again, that any kind of bracket in your seeding, that's just how it works. All other sports that do that as far as a playoff elimination goes about it. The NFL, you get a bye, you're the number 1 seed, you get a bye, and then go against the next best of the wild card teams. I understand, Chris, and I don't remember what you said his name was, but of the complication to it, because I really did, and this is why Sharon and I said that a couple of weeks ago, we wouldn't talk about it until it happened. I really thought prior to Atlanta, whatever the standings were, 1 through 32, that was how they were doing it. I didn't know they were doing this seeding process over these 3 races. But I can give an answer as to why. I'm not saying I agree with it, but you look at a driver like Brad Keselowski, just had a rough start to this season. So over the next 3 races, he's kind of gotten his tires under him as well as his feet. Might get a higher seed than 32nd because I think right now they've been running better than they have been all year long. So again, you want that top versus bottom where they're at currently, not where they've been stuck for the beginning part of the season because they got wrecked out at Daytona and whatnot. So I do like it, but you're right. It does kind of overcomplicate it. For the casual fan, you're right. They're probably not going to start looking at it until the seating's set and they can look at a chart and go, okay, this is who my matchups are. You got to be fairly involved. But the other thing you said that the original, if you will, the March Madness bracket, they have complicated that because now you have those play-in games for that 16th spot as well for each of the divisions. So they did it to there as well. The big thing there is just the additional exposure when it comes to that, which is why I think one of the good things about this, you both mentioned it, we may see a driver that normally doesn't win races, at least in contention and talked about through this midway part of the season because they're in this bracket and advancing because the top driver, Kyle Larson, got knocked out. And so whoever was against him advances, so that's a bottom seed, if you will. That's all about exposure. So I do like it. I'm looking forward to it. Is the seeding process, these 3 races, a little complicated? Yeah. First off, you just have to know it's happening, which I didn't. So that's bad on me. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And again, this being the first year and how they're going about it. And Sharon, you mentioned it. It's same thing for this TNT stretch, being that they have the 5 races. They got 5 races out of 36. man, you got to get your bang for your buck in those 5 races. And I think that's why this was a great spot to put it for them. And then tying in Amazon with it. Well, these 3 races, the final 3 races on Amazon are the seeding. So that has some bearing on it. I like it all the way around. Other than you might have to think a little bit, which, yeah, Chris, that hurts.
I mean, but here's the worst case scenario. Shane Van Gisbergen goes and wins Mexico City. Now we've got a bunch of guys who are going to try to fill out a bracket, and they're going to realize, well, where's Shane Van Gisbergen? Well, he's not on here because he wasn't seated where he could be, but he won at Mexico. Like, what? I thought if you win, you're in. Like, so you take a guy who was, 35th in points, 34th in points. He gets a win at Mexico City. Now he's sitting somewhere, what, 9th or on the playoff point system. So now all of a sudden it doesn't make any sense, and I think that's just creating confusion.
Hopefully they got a buddy that can say, no, he can't do this playoff or this tournament, but he is in the playoffs and will run for NASCAR or the championship at the end of the year. You got to hang around with buddies that are smarter than you.
Look, that's no doubt. But as I said, it is kind of a complicated issue as we go into. And there is one thing about the basketball play-in that we were talking about. If I'm not mistaken, they have 4 groups that are seated at a 1 seed, and those play within their 8 people, and then that's kind of how it is eliminated.
Well, that's
so
why I'm
questioning
bracket.
There is kind of a question there of what you're saying, because I've seen.
Oh, I see what share. Okay, I got you now. You're right. They do break it into regions.
Yeah, on that side of it, definitely. But we'll find out more, I guess, as we get closer to
and
it.
I might be wrong then. Maybe it is that the top 4 are each number 1 seeds. You're right. If you were to do the full bracket like that, it is a regional thing. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, or find somebody smarter than all 3 of us to hang out with.
Well, I was trying to figure out how they're going to spread it out over the 5 races. So I think there is going to be some kind of a different way that they're going to do this. So we'll have to kind of see how it all plays out. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Sharon, there, it's already provided some great entertainment, and we haven't even gotten to it yet.
Well, and I'm looking forward to watching it. I can't wait to finally see, because I was just going through some of the stuff on the media site, and I haven't seen anything yet. And I haven't gone to NASCAR.com, but I haven't seen anything yet that gives us a bracket or tells us how that's going to be broken down.
Unfortunately, I feel like we're missing the grade here, because this is typically the dry season where there's no other sports but baseball being played right now. And we could really capitalize on the gambling side as well. So maybe they just don't know how to hype it yet. Maybe they just don't know. Maybe we're not doing our job and really buying into how big this could do and how many eyes it could peel upon. Because anytime that you're creating this type of bracket, what you're also creating is a gambling side to it. And gambling,
that's what I said.
There's a certain aspect to it that brings people and eyes into the sport that you don't normally see. Just as a guy like Cletus McFarland, us old folks are like, why is this guy so important? Well, the main reason why this guy is important is because he has 1 million ages 16 to 32 kids that are watching NASCAR now because a guy named Cletus McFarland is in it. So, it's we got to capitalize on it. We've got to hype it up. I think it's our job in the media to make sure that we do that. And I hope that we can tell other people how exciting this is going to be to have an in-season tournament, for during a time where you're going to find cycling and golf on television. So we're definitely we got something to sell. It's our job to do that.
Okay, I did find something over here on NASCAR.com about the in-season challenge. It's how NASCAR's in-season challenge works for 2025. And it just says, when does it start? The first race.
Milk.
Are you okay?
Chris needs some milk.
Oh, is it the dog?
He's got a cat, but
No, my son can't eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches without milk.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I was
I'm in
trying
the
to
kitchen.
read this thing. Okay, the top 32 drivers in points following the Cup Series race at Nashville will make up the in-season challenge field. And it gives a list of who all those drivers are. The 4 full-time drivers who did not qualify are Shane Van Gisbergen, Cole Custer, Riley Earps, and Cody Ware. Those are the only drivers that are not going to be in it. There are 3 seeding races. Drivers are seeded by their best finish in those 3 races. So it just says drivers are seeded by their best finish in those 3 races. So that's interesting. How ties are broken. The first tiebreaker is the next best finish in the 3 seeding races. If 2 drivers were to finish with the exact same finishing positions over the 3 seeding races, the next tiebreaker is point standings following the Pocono race. It gives the tracks, and we talked about there'll be 32 drivers at Atlanta, 16 drivers at Chicago, 8 drivers at Sonoma, 4 drivers at Dover, and then 2 drivers at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The drivers in each head-to-head matchup that finishes higher than the other wins that matchup and advances to the next round. The prize is the cool $1 million in ultimate bragging rights. And then it gives how you can watch TNT and True TV is what they're given for how you can watch these races. So there you have it.
Well, and I'm looking at a different one because HBO Max with an alternative broadcast available on True TV. Okay. That to me actually makes it even a little more complicated because I thought it was the average over the 3, but they're saying just the best finish. Then you go to tiebreakers, which does come into average because your second best finish would add to an average. But
right.
I think and I hope, as Chris was alluding to, maybe we didn't, as an industry, do a good enough job hyping and being improved. I won't say recovered, but I've not been on gambling sites. I am sure that they probably had lines out on Brad Keselowski, whether or not he stays in. Does Shane Van Gisbergen get in? I think you will start seeing more of that. And if I were part of the production team over the next couple races, I would have something out there as the race is. Hey, this would put so-and-so as the number 1 seed, or,
right.
each week as it goes. And right now there is one on NASCAR.com that shows it strictly as the points as they are now by looking at it.
Oh, in-season challenge. I see it.
Yeah. But that is strictly based off points, which is how I thought it was going. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, each week you'll just have to see that. You'll know, okay, if somebody wins the race, this first race here at Michigan, well, they're leading now. It's as they finish that race. This is one where, Chris, I'm kind of with you, of that kind of overcomplicates it, because now whoever wins Sonoma, if it's Shane Van Gisbergen, it really don't matter because nobody else can win the race then that's in the tournament. You're going to have to follow it and do a little bit of your own watching and figuring. But say it were somebody like Daniel Suarez. Well, now you got whoever won Michigan, Daniel Suarez. Well, what's their next best finish? So, but again, I think it engages fans of that. We obviously got to go to NASCAR.com or JSki or wherever they find these brackets and updates. So there too, I think it's engaging them in different aspects. And like I said, if I'm part of the production team, as soon as that race is over and the results are official, I'd be sending out postings. Hey, this is the current, as they are now. We talk about that as it gets closer, especially to the end of the playoffs, as they run now, type answer. So I think they will as it gets going. Do I think they could have done a little bit more, at least going into Nashville, as that being the final race?
Yeah.
In my opinion, yeah. Because like I said, I didn't even know that was the final race.
Exactly. I think there was a missed opportunity. And I think that Another missed opportunity is showing a bracket on how people are going to fill into those spots.
Yeah,
For each
I
of the
agree.
races. So hopefully we'll see that in the next 3 races, how that bracket is shaping up. So interesting stuff.
Especially being that last spot was Brad Keselowski. I mean,
Yes.
for 2-3 weeks, that would have been my storyline. Is Brad in? Is he out? Is he going to make it? Or even if he were in and it were between Shane Van Gisbergen and Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, one of them is going to get in. I certainly would have been making it about that this past weekend or two.
Yeah,
But
me too.
hindsight's 2020. First time round, there's always room for improvement, right?
Yeah, for some reason, I thought they were taking the average of these 5 races to put their seating together for the next 5. So I totally missed that, exactly how it worked. Okay, anything else we want to say here, or can we move on to our next one? Because, Jay, I think it's back to you.
All right. Well, this one, and this time, this will be to the playoff bracket, if you will. Chris Buescher, and I know, Chris, this goes back to when you were on 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it paid off. They got half of it back. They didn't get everything, but they got half of it back. So 30 points back, and right now he's in 14th in points. However, because Josh Berry is below the line, bump back out, puts him at 15th at 297. Priest at 289. That's a 8-point gap. Obviously huge, I mean, because otherwise he'd be 22 points behind. So it was worth it.
It absolutely was. Chris?
Yeah, I mean I was trying to get you guys to realize it's about them points. How detrimental that would be to Chris Buescher and the entire RFK racing program. They were in no position not to challenge the system, and it worked out for him. And that's exactly why you do it. A lot of people are like, "Well, what's the point? You're just going to get denied." Well, this is why you always challenge the authority, and it paid off for them by dividends. As I said, there's been a lot of penalties put out. There's a couple of guys there at the bottom of the list that their performance doesn't match where they're standing in the where they're sitting in the standings, and that's because of penalties. This is going to hurt, but it's not going to hurt as bad. It doesn't become detrimental to the season. Buescher still got plenty of time and a lot of racetracks to be able to race his way into the playoffs. But as an organization, to have taken that lick on the chin after the Ryan Preece incident, after the Brad Keselowski incident, we were given no choice, and I say that as an RFK fan. We were given no choice but to try to buck the system, try to challenge it, and it paid off. And that's a smart move by those guys who are in the upper salons, because it's one of those. Was it done for performance purposes? And I believe the NASCAR panel said, well, maybe not. Maybe there wasn't much of a performance advantage to do this. So that's what the reasons for the reduction. I'm not sure. Do you guys? Was there a clarification in the reason for the reduction?
I'll argue while agreeing with you in a minute when it comes back around to me.
I got you. Well, I'll send it off.
Okay. What I'm going to say is that Chris Buescher now sits in 14th place at 297 points. If you deduct those 30 points, he would have been at 267, and that would have put him exactly tied with John Hunter Nemechek in 22nd place. So That's the difference that it made for Chris Buescher getting those 30 points back. And I think it always helps to put these things into perspective, at least from my point of view. So that's kind of what a difference it did make for him. It put him from being completely outside of the playoff system to being inside in 14th place. Now, is he secure there? Maybe not, because he's in 14th place. So he's above the cut line, but the difference between 297 points and being out of the cut line at 287 is 10 points. So 10 points would put him below that cut line versus above the cut line. So that's kind of interesting as well. So these next upcoming races are going to be really important to Chris Buescher and whether or not he can advance himself and make his position more secure after winning that appeal. So it definitely paid off. Jay?
Well, and I was hoping to have a little more information here than what I've found. Where I said I was going to disagree with you, Chris, was it wasn't that they were appealing just to appeal and try and buck the system. They obviously did feel justified or not wrong by doing what they were doing. It was two parts. Here it says upon hearing the testimony on Wednesday, the National Motorsports Appeals Panel found the team was in violation of the front bumper cover, but not in violation of the exhaust cover panel. And that's all I got. So, like I said, it wasn't that they were just like, oh, let's appeal it and see if they feel sorry for us, a type deal of no hope. They obviously, well, again, I mean, you gave some other examples of if you got steroids in your system and whatnot, you're not going to appeal the penalty that you've been given. They obviously felt there was some justification. If you left 10 pounds out of your car and they hit you for a weight, you're not going to be like, yeah, let's appeal anyway, just to see what happens. They obviously did feel like, hey, we used the bumper cover or exhaust cover as it was given. We didn't do anything to it. Again, that's all behind closed doors, so I can't give any more information. But they obviously did make a case that at least on the exhaust cover panel, they were not in the wrong, but they were still on the front bumper cover. I just didn't want it to be that, hey, they did it for no reason. They know they were wrong, but they appealed it anyway.
We're comparing apples to oranges. If you look at what Joe Gibbs did earlier in the season with the spoiler issue and showed up, and so there was already doubt, that plays into the decision to, no matter what, go ahead and appeal this process, because there's already been some appeals won throughout the season for certain things that are not necessarily performance issues. So that's what I'm alluding to, is that once you look at what other people have appealed and have won or have had reductions to, your crime kind of fit into that category. It's very important that you appeal it, go through the process to see if there's a reduction. If you got caught doing something red-handed and your hand was in the cookie jar, we're going to give you the penalty, because I'm not going to appeal the fact you caught me red-handed. But in a situation where something can be questioned in a court of law, something can be questioned that this wasn't intentional, that is the forgiveness that you're given on that side of an appeal process. We've watched people go through the penal system. They got 30 years that was reduced to 15 years because there was some kind of a challenge to where this conviction was given, or the cruelty of the conviction. So obviously the appeal panel looked at it and said, yeah, it's a crime, but it wasn't worth what NASCAR decided it was. It's really worth this right here. And that's why I said that it was very detrimental to their organization to appeal the process, considering their backs were already against the wall and what had not been already approved through the appeal process with other teams. So that's my argument to it.
And I'll just say that this is a good example of us not necessarily knowing all of the details. And it's important to note that a lot of times the teams in NASCAR don't want to give all the details until after the appeal process. Because what we didn't know going into this appeal is that Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing realized that maybe that cover, was it a fuel cover, or what kind of a cover was it?
Exhaust
the exhaust cover panel. Yep.
Yeah, they felt like that exhaust cover was done properly, So there must have been something that
Okay.
NASCAR saw that caused them to think that it wasn't done properly. But upon further review, they discovered that it wasn't within the tolerance or whatever. I don't know. But we don't always know all the details. And so, neither are they going to reveal all those details until the appropriate time. So this is a good example of that a lot of times we do speculate as to what it is, and then later find out exactly what it was. So, Jay, I feel like you're biting at the bit.
Well, no, I just and hopefully you can go back to Chris one more time, because to me it sounds like you're talking about speaking out of both sides of your mouth. You want integrity in the sport, but yet you're saying, hey, even if you're wrong, appeal it anyway because you might get away with it. That's where I was having the issue. Now, like you said, if you're caught red-handed, your hand is in the cookie jar and you got a hold of that cookie and you got cookie in your mouth, yeah, so be it. And like I said, if they did feel like, hey, we did use the standard issued part or we didn't modify it, by all means. But we've seen it, like I said, of just to appeal and see if you can get away with it. I feel like there are some teams that do, and that's where I have the problem, because again, you're getting away from the integrity. If you did it, I did it. Daniel Dye, College Racing, they didn't have the right weights. They said, we're not appealing. To me, that's saying we know what we did wrong. We got caught. We're not going to fight it. Could they appeal it and say, well, NASCAR didn't weigh it a third time, or their scales are wrong, or whatever else we hear at the track of there was this, there was that. No. I mean, if you were wrong, you were wrong. Admit it and move on, and don't do it again. But in this case, there was some justification to why they felt, or clearly the panel felt there was some justification as to one half of it. I'm not against appealing it. I'm just saying to appeal it just to appeal it and try one more time to get away with whatever you were trying to get away with the first time doesn't help build that integrity we were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but that's why we have a channel that we go through with the appeal process. Because somewhere in the middle, NASCAR can't just start throwing people out and giving them $1 million fine and 200 points. So there's a reason why that appeal panel is there, and they said that the penalty didn't fit the crime, and they reduced it, and it probably made somebody sore butt up there in the NASCAR tech room, and that's understandable. But at the same time, it's nice to have a good friend on that appeals panel as well.
Okay. Chris.
I'm speaking speculatively.
Yeah, definitely. Chris, what's our next hot topic?
Oh, Lord. So I guess let's do I guess whatever was next on the list. Hold on. I got a lot of open tabs over here. Prime Video, Charlotte and Nashville. I was so disappointed not being able to come on last week, because that was my big selling topic, is the great production that we've seen from Prime Video. They didn't just come in and half butt something. They come in and they hired Dale Jr. a year ago. We understand why now, right? Because they were ready. Having Carl Edwards, Danielle Trotta. I think Danielle Trotta is perfect for the job. She's a good mediator. She's funny. She's attractive. She's everything that NASCAR needed on that panel for the pre-race and the post-race. She's very knowledgeable. Carl Edwards, it was like he's been gone for 9 years, but you wouldn't know that. I almost feel like cousin Carl could be Darrell Waltrip. I said this to our group earlier in the week, last week, that Carl Edwards very well could go into the booth almost immediately, and I think fans would respond to that. He just has an elegance about him. When I watched his interview with Dale Jr. and watched how he took his time to answer questions, how he and then went into detail. That's somebody who knows how to articulate. I so slobber all over my words. I say things that aren't that have no meaning. Like you couldn't find it in Webster Dictionary. Sometimes the words that I say. Carl has a way to articulate. He has a way to connect. He has a way to describe what he is feeling emotionally and also with racing. And you said what Dale Jr. Dale Jr. is a lot like me. He'll just stuff will come out of his mouth at times. But you take somebody like Carl Edwards who can articulate, who can sell you something, who can describe the picture that he's seeing. That's something that we missed with DW. DW had a way of describing something. It wasn't just the one-liners or the old saying boogity 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 and all. If you go back and you listen to his broadcasts and stuff, he really described things to a T. And I think the old school announcers that learned from the Ken Squires of the world and of course my what's Eli Gold. They just had a way of describing what they were seeing. You don't see that much out of broadcasters these days. I just felt Cousin Carl brought it right back. It's hard to believe he's been gone 9 years. Dale Jr., Stevie Letarte, those two, it kind of does remind me of the DW and Jeff Hammond days, where you had two guys there that crew chief and driver that really know how to pair off with each other. I wasn't as fascinated in Nashville. I guess I was kind of ready for what we did over in Charlotte. I was kind of comparing. I felt like maybe there was a few more commercials than what we had at Charlotte. My biggest takeaway was exactly what Dale Jr. said at the end of the program when they were doing their post race. Look, like, it doesn't matter if this post race takes 30 minutes or an hour and a half. We're here until we get everything out of everybody. And I felt like that was the moment where I was like, you know what? So many times we've gone overtime into a broadcast and we get that third interview or that second interview and then it's gone. It's over with. And you're just left with this hole in your heart. Like, I want more. That was exciting. Where's the come down? We have that right now. We have that with Prime. The quality, look, my son come out. We have a porch setting where we have a TV outside and some beautiful lights and all. It's just a beautiful setting. My son comes out. He looks up at the TV. He says, "Dad, like, why is it so crystal clear?" And I said, that's where Fox has really kept us pushed back for all these years. So I have nothing. Nowhere do I have anything bad to say about what Prime has done. There is the old folk problem. I think a lot of old folks did not want to break down and get. There he is. didn't want to
He did, though.
subscribe.
He did.
I'm waiting my turn.
I'm ready to pass the baton. I've said enough.
Okay. Well, I would hesitate to compare Carl Edwards to DW and some of those other guys, because my frustration with some of those other guys, Waltrip, Hammond, all those guys were promoting themselves. And in journalism, there's a thing that says, tell the story, don't be the story. And on Fox, so often they make themselves the story instead of telling us what's going on in the race. So that's my main gripe with Fox a lot of times. They've gotten better since Jeff Hammond and DW and Kenny Wallace and all those guys were on there. Were they entertaining? Yes, they were entertaining. And I didn't mind it so much when it wasn't during the race. But during the race, they would get into the self-promotion kind of stuff. And I absolutely hated it because I really think that I tuned into that race because I wanted to hear about the race. And what I found so refreshing is that these guys were talking about the race the whole time. And I loved it. And did we lose Chris? I hope he's coming back. There he is. Put him back up here. What I like so much about this coverage is that they were really focused on the race. They were giving really great insights. My brother and I were talking about it during the race. If they didn't have the crank it up, I hate the crank it up. I just don't get anything out of it. But I really love that these guys were giving so many great insights and so many great bits of information throughout this race that really helped me stay engaged in the race. And I noticed it too when we were doing the reviews tonight, as I was reading the recap of what happened in this race. It sounded like it should be boring. It should have been a boring finish. But my brother and I were sitting on the edge of our seat, wondering if the caution was going to come out, how it was going to change the race, and wondering how they were going to navigate that traffic. We were totally engaged in the finish of that race. Had it been on Fox, I don't think we would have been. But these guys had a way of making it very exciting to watch, and I loved it. And I think that's what that's their job. That's what they should be doing. To Chris's point, I love the post-race breakdown and the fact that they brought everybody together for that post-race breakdown and celebrated Ryan Blaney's victory. I thought that was kind of a fun way to do it too. It might have been tea in those cups. I don't know. Maybe it was beer, but I thought it was kind of a fun way to celebrate the victory. And I really enjoyed the coverage on Prime Video. It's what we've been asking for. And Dale Jr., Steve Letarte, Danielle Trotta and her group with Carl Edwards and Corey LaJoy, I thought it was fantastic. Jay, I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Don't be so sure on that.
Uh-oh. He's going to be on the other side of the coin.
No, well, here, I'm just not even sure where to start. So, first off, I will say I want to separate Amazon from the production of the race on Amazon. Yes, I did break down. I got Amazon twice, actually, because I had to get it on my TV, and that took some work, and I actually had to buy a second subscription. I got no technical support whatsoever from any audio or even the website. So now that I got that out of my system,
well,
the production, yeah.
Usually Amazon's very good.
Yeah, you only need one subscription, my friend.
No, I had. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. I'll leave it at that. I've gotten that out of my system. The production of, as far as that, absolutely, I do think it was great. However, what I don't want to hear and see, and I know, Sharon, you just did a little bit, and I got it. You're not the worst by any means. My issue is more with the mass on social media. You cannot compare it to Fox. Fox is a television broadcast. This is a streaming. You can do an hour and a half post race because you have nothing else. You are solely there for that. When you have it on network television, there is slots,
so you're making the case for streaming.
From that aspect, absolutely. Which going forward, again, if people want to have it and do the post race, I know NBC, it used to be they used to have the race day, and I know that got compared and brought up as far as the pre-race. And then a post race, Victory Lane with Kyle Petty and Dale Jarrett. If you can't do it on network TV, they had it on NBC Sports One or their app, by all means. And then if you want it, you go get it. But to hold that against Fox specifically, again, you also want to watch your favorite whatever drama and World's Got Talent TV show that's on next that I could care less about, but there are others that do. So again, it's not always just about that. One of the things, Sharon, this is where I wanted to get specific with something you said. You said you felt like these people, this team, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Steve Letarte, Carl Edwards, did a good job of giving the information about the race. I watched Fox because I wasn't anti-Fox. I felt like they still provided that. I think some people, though, get blinders because they don't like this. They're not seeing what is there. Could they have done a better job? And there again, you mentioned what you called self-promotion. My dad likes to go on that. He refuses to watch Kenny Wallace's show because he said he doesn't learn anything about the guy he's interviewing because it's all about Kenny Wallace. I get where you're coming from on that, and there is some truth to that when it comes to that. And some of the antics, I know you talk about that, certainly could be done differently. But here's the thing, and I did not watch the Charlotte pre-race. I heard Steve Letarte on an interview on Sirius XM, though, talking about doing a puppet show. Did you see that? I can't comment because I didn't see it. That they did something where they were at a bar with puppets. And there again, to me, everybody thought, oh, that's great. And I'm like, but yet if Fox does anything with any kind of animation, or it's received poorly. And I'm just like, what's the difference?
Was it during the race?
No, this was the pre-race.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about during the race.
Right. Okay. Well, but this all goes in because everybody's wanting to compare it. Oh, we need to all go Amazon Prime now. Fox should never carry another race. I've heard it all already, and you heard it before it even came about. But anyway, and I say this, and you've heard me say it before. I'm not, like I said, I think the production was great, but I think fans are going to be behind it no matter what because it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. Certain fans, put it that way. It could be crap, but if it's Dale Earnhardt Jr., it's going to get supported from certain fans. I'll put it that way. So that's my only aspect of that. But yeah, overall, like I said, the production of the race on Amazon Prime, I was absolutely happy and content with. But I'm a happy guy to please because I was happy with Fox and NBC. I'm happy with whoever covers the race. Except that guy at Why Not. I don't go to races there no more. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Is it Chris's turn?
I think so.
Yeah, Chris. You've got your mute on.
Oh, sorry. For a comment? There we go. Yeah, want me to comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I don't know. Like you said, Jay, there's a lot of fans that jump on the bandwagon. It's you. It's the best thing ever. These are the same fans that will find something by the end of the tour to complain about. NASCAR has, a lot of negativity, a lot of DARFs, as it's referred to on the door bumper clear, that always want to engage in some kind of negative context. I think that's racing in general. We don't mind being the 1%. We do want the exposure. I think that it's best right now to still have the Daytona 500 on a free TV type program like a Fox or a CBS. Even they did it for years. I think it's very important that you have that exposure still on mainstream. The one thing that I fear the most about going straight streaming is that we'll get put off in a little box and nobody ever hears about us anymore. And that's something that I'm not sure, like dirt racing. Are we growing in the industry of streaming? I'm not really sure. I think we've got too many streaming companies out there, and we're actually hurting the product because you have some that do the product really well, and then you pay the same $30 a month for another type of industry that somebody that's in the industry or a website, and the quality and the experience is nowhere near as good. So that kind of starts putting a negative connotation to what you're looking at. Prime did it well. Prime did it very good. Do we still need to be on network TV on places like CW and Fox and NBC? Absolutely. We need our championship race on a network television where all somebody has to do is turn it on as free TV. I think that the most disturbing side of all of this that I've witnessed is the argument that there was 230 million people that have Prime around the world, and we were all 500,000 by our first event on Prime. I really expected Charlotte to be somewhere in the 4 range, not somewhere in the 2.1 or I think it was the average of I don't have it right here in front of me. I should have pulled the stat up already, but I do remember from the information I was given that basically we were missing about 500,000 fans that did not get to watch it, and that's, when you think about the different capabilities of watching streaming services and MRN radio or PRN that was actually doing this, the race at Charlotte, that I'm speaking of, it's one of those situations where you look and you're like, well, you kind of always thought in the back of your head, these numbers aren't the real numbers because somebody watched it off of their DVR, somebody watched it on their telephone. Well, now we're given one specific spot to watch it all from, and you have to be a member in order to watch it. And the number was actually lower than what our typical number was on network television. So there's definitely room to grow. I don't want to get put off into a streaming service that will put us at the back and not care about the growth of our sport. I feel like when you have the magnets like Michael Jordan and Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson and what he's done, you have very good advocates to grow the sport. As much as I don't like Kyle Larson, the whole Indy 500 thing, it kept eyes on view. And look, why does IndyCar suck for 14 races? And I'm speaking speculatively. Why are they so horrible? But yet when you go to Indianapolis, all of a sudden there's 350,000 people there. Right. And we have a hard
Mhm.
time filling up racetracks that are supposedly diehard race fans all the time. So I don't quite get the enigma. Maybe one of you guys can help me. Maybe one of you guys are smarter than I am. But in the whole process of all of this, I do want to say that I'm kind of concerned that we weren't able to top our number and we were actually below it. That is concerning.
Well, I think it's just like anything that you do that's new. You don't always start out at the same number that you had in the previous situation. So I think that over time it probably would grow. I wish more people would have taken advantage of the 30-day free trial. I will say, Jay, you and I have to talk because I have one sign in that I used on the bedroom TV, the living room TV, the kitchen TV, my phone, my tablets. I've got it in multiple different sources and it's all one sign in. And I can get in on any of those platforms on that one service.
I was proud of myself on the TV. It gave me a QRC code. I used my phone and it pulled it up onto my phone, but it never gave me that chance to log in or I can't think of what it's called. Comcast it, push it from my phone to the TV. I don't want to talk about it. I use bad words.
To the TV. I'm not sure what kind of TV you have, but
Samsung Smart TV.
Okay, you should have been able to pull up the Prime app on your Samsung TV.
It did, but it made me go through the process and get another account.
What you should have done.
It never gave me a chance to log in and use the one. Like I said, one spot where it gave me the QR.
You missed it, Jay, because it's there. I do it all the time.
Yeah, you
can
get
it
from your
phone
to your television.
Sign in on it.
It gave me the QRC code, which I now know how to do. I don't like to do it, but I know how. It said, okay, scan this and then you'll be logged in. I did that. It didn't work. I went through the Amazon help thing, but could not get any help and assistance with it. And that I need to quit. I need to quit.
I could have helped you and assisted you because I do it all the time.
Sharon, you would have muted me. I was not using nice words at that point.
Okay. Well, anyway, offline, we've got to figure this out because you should not have to have 2 subscriptions. No. That I am convinced of. Okay.
But there anyway, again, that shows the complication that people can have. And that's the reason why some people did choose to set this out. They're not going to buy into the experience. If you ever challenge a race fan is the one that will prove you wrong. We all bought that subscription for Peacock to watch the Bills and the Chiefs a couple of years ago. But there are certain race fans that they do it their way, their old way. And I guarantee you, most of them had a subscription to Sirius XM or were listening to it on PRN.com or MRN.com, whichever may be I think both of the last races were on PRN. So
Yeah.
they were savvy enough to get that
And I
done on
wonder
their
if
cell
those were
phone.
counted in the numbers. They probably didn't count those folks
No, probably not.
in the numbers. And so anyway, I just, I don't know. I thought they did a great job, but I am a proficient streamer. So I know how it works. I didn't have any problems with it. I was already an Amazon Prime member, so I'm probably not your typical NASCAR fan or whatever. But a lot of people are already Prime members. So I know that there were some people who took advantage of that free trial offer.
Yeah, I believe, Miss Sharon, without any disrespect here, not Southern, men typically are more hard-headed, older men than the older
Really?
generation of females. We for
You're
some
kidding me, right?
reason our fathers are still very hard-headed and don't want to listen to nobody. And my grandmothers are all pretty tech savvy, so I think I think we can give it to the older generation. Women definitely do it better than the old men.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for saying that. But I know some pretty tech savvy men too. But I do well, I'll tell you a story offline about some tech in the younger generation. And I'm talking about a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old who could do it better. And the guy who was 60 years old couldn't do it, but the 3-year-old did it. That's how tech savvy our younger generation is. So I understand how, if you're not used to using that environment, it is difficult to navigate. And so I guess what I have to my advantage is that I'm not afraid to really push the envelope and try different things to get what I'm going after. But some people are not as tech savvy, and therefore they don't know where to push. They don't know what to push in order to make those things happen. So I get it. And I understand why we're missing some of the population in that regard. What NASCAR needs to do is come out with that step-by-step visual that helps fans on how they can go through those. I think we make a lot of assumptions sometimes. And by making those assumptions, we miss the point of making it easy for fans to navigate that process. And so if I could give some advice to NASCAR, that would be the advice I would give them, is provide the visual, provide the step-by-step, this is how you do it, to make it a lot easier for some of these folks, and let them see that 30-day trial would have given them the opportunity to see all 5 of those races. Okay, Jay.
That's not NASCAR's job. That's on whoever they gave it to. If they give it to Fox, it's on Fox, you know.
But it is NASCAR's job from the perspective of, if you want the viewers to be there, whether it's your job or not, do it. Put it out there and make it easy for fans, because fans are going to NASCAR.com. They're not going to Prime Video to figure it out.
But that's not going to fix it. And I hear this one when it comes to the CW, because some people say they don't get the CW. Or going back, and this was mostly on Dave Moody's show, of that the local affiliate carried a basketball game or whatever else. And Moody's like, I appreciate it, but calling me, don't do a darn thing. Call your local CW. So again, that goes back to, in my opinion, goes back to Amazon, not NASCAR.
But Amazon is not going to know the customer as well as NASCAR. NASCAR, those are their viewers. And if I were there, I would be either pushing primed to do it with my assistance because I know the NASCAR customer, or I would be putting it out myself. And I understand what you're saying, Jay. I agree with you to a certain degree, but Amazon's not going to do it. NASCAR.
You're 100% right. I'm going to get excited here, and if you got to mute me, I get it, Sharon, but that is exactly the problem. Amazon don't care about its customers. These aren't customers to them. They're race fans that are just using their service, and that's where, like I said,
so you can see their point.
Had I not been doing this show with y'all, I would not have gotten it just for these 5 races. If it had just been for my entertainment purposes, I would have sat in my vehicle and listened to Sirius XM radio and not watched it. That's the honest truth. And I was to that point of just to get to listen to the race, of trying to find a way to go about that. And I, for some reason, I don't
know that you can get a online subscription to Sirius XM that would allow you to listen to it on your phone or your car. And
that's what I used to. For some reason, that's not on my phone anymore, because I noticed that app is missing, but I have, because I used to listen to other things on there. But
you don't have to have either one of those. Just go to MRN, Motor Racing Network.
Yes.
And that's another one I've had.
You can listen live through the website, or PRN actually has an app that you can download to listen to them. One or the other has an app, the other doesn't. I think PRN has an app and MRN doesn't. But Performance Racing Network, you can just download that and
this goes
directly there.
This goes back to my whole thing, though, of I don't want to live off of my phone, and I certainly, again, when I first got it, I got it on my phone and I could watch it on my phone. I don't want to watch a race on my phone.
I've got Sirius XM on my TV. I can listen to it on my TV if I want to, or through my Alexa app. Whoops.
I don't have that either. Yeah, I don't talk to my house, so I hear you do that all the time. Yeah, I can talk to my house, but it don't answer me or do anything. Trust me, I talk plenty to my TV and whatever else, but it still didn't do what I wanted.
Yeah, we need a tutorial for NASCAR fans.
So
I may be calling you, Sharon. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Prime can advertise as much as they want to. Nobody's going to see it if you don't have Prime.
Right.
So, Ms. Sharon, you're actually absolutely right. NASCAR is the one that needed to basically, to help Jay out here. They should have put out some memos, some emails saying, hey, you want to become a Prime member? Maybe you're having issues. Here's a number, or set an appointment. One of the Prime people will call you. They did not set up that outlet, and that's unfortunate. And I think that it cost us in numbers, because a lot of people were just like, I'm not going to fool with it. I'm not going to make the effort. And if we'd have made the effort a little bit easier, there's guys that go to the races all the time. We go and we get all the free stuff. NASCAR could have had a tent set up where, they could walk you through it. They do to give you a free T-shirt. So why wouldn't we do that? Why would we?
Exactly.
They did put it on the front page of Amazon, but what does that have to do with what do you mean, son? They made a way of easily. But you have to have Prime in order to have witnessed any of that. As I said, Prime would have they can advertise as much as they want to. You're only going to see it if you're already a Prime member.
Exactly right.
They would have. But what I did notice is Spectrum. I've seen several Spectrum communication commercials, which had me kind of scratching my head.
Yeah, me too.
Because that's they're a cable network.
Yeah, I thought
Wi-Fi.
That was kind of interesting too, because Spectrum, I know, is down where my son lives. And I asked John, my brother, I said, do we have Spectrum here? He's like, no, I don't think so. So yeah, it was interesting that we were watching Spectrum commercials, because it's a cable service, and we don't even have it in our area. Right. So anyway, there needed to be some, I like your idea of a telephone number to call where somebody could help you step by step on how to get set up with your free trial. So even if it would have been somebody from NASCAR that knows how to do it, if Prime wouldn't do it, if I was NASCAR, man, I would be doing it, because you're right. If you're not a Prime customer, you're not going to get anything that Prime puts out, because who do they send it to? To the masses? No, they want to send it to the right people. So it needed to be done through NASCAR.
Right. And I kind of,
Jay?
I'm keeping my mouth shut. I said what I had to say. But again, production of it, of the broadcast, absolutely. Fully enjoyed it. And I appreciate the fact of, y'all mentioned that of the post race, and that too, of whether or not it was what was in the cup. They can do that. It's not network TV. They don't have to worry about different things. They can do things like that. That was the first one. I didn't watch the Charlotte one. So when Bubba Wallace first came up too, and they gave him one, I thought they were just messing around. And all of a sudden they did bring one up. And for Ryan Blaney, they all did. And they, I thought it was great. I thought that team was a great job. Corey LaJoy, Steve Letarte, Danielle Trot. And there again, Chris about set me off, because she was the one that was kind of driven off, in my opinion, driven out of the ARCA Menard series, because people didn't like her. I've always thought she does a great job. I don't understand that, but everybody has their own things they like or don't like. That's my biggest thing, is then don't make that the whole focal point,
Exactly.
I do have one more thing, and I feel like we're kicking the tires here. What did come? I lost it, and I had to try to find it. It has something to do. I'm sorry, I forgot. I'll try to remember it real quick. It twice went through my head, and now I forgot it again. So I got scared I was going to forget. Yeah, we're just kicking the wheels here. So
yeah, we are at this point. We really are. But if it does come to you later, just let us know.
I feel so dumb.
Don't worry, it happened to me earlier. I started to say something,
yeah.
and midstream, I totally forgot what it was. So it happens. I think, let's see, horsepower still in discussion, and Allmendinger in Cup for the 26th season with Chris Rice. And Byron gets a 4-year extension with Hendrick. That's 4, and Rockingham for sale. So we missed 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of our points, right?
Yeah, but we had some good discussions on the ones we did hit.
Yeah, we did. So maybe we can push those into the next show. I know it's getting late, and everything. I don't know how this over 2 hours is going to work, but at any rate, I hope you guys had a good time. Let's go around the horn and talk about where we're going to be and who we are and where you can find us. Chris, let's start with you.
Well, we'll be back to back. We just had the USCS Sprint Cars at House of Hook this past weekend. A big show, had a lot of fans there. Derek Hagar come on and put a clinic on all of them, lapped the whole field except for 2 cars. We saw 11.538 on the radar gun for on the time lap, which was about almost a half a second quicker than our super late model track record.
Wow.
Lance Moss just held it to it was in hot laps, so I had to ask some people if that was actually an official time that we could hold, and I didn't see anybody that argued it with me because it was on my race pass. So if we can't hold it, then it's 11.8 by the race. But anyway, we're going to be back again this weekend at the House of Hook for weekly racing. We've got a big race coming up in less than a month, the Firecracker 50. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night program. Thursday nights, we're going to be practicing. Friday night, Saturday night, we have a full show except for heats and qualifying. For factory stock on Saturday, we're going to have a full show plus the features and the B mains for the factory stocks. Make sure that you've made your plans to be there and join us. You can find me on Yellow Caution Flag, Chris Creighton, on Facebook, Flag of Caution on Twitter and TikTok. And that's about it. And right here on the Fan4Racing.
All right. On Monday night. All right, Jay.
Well, yeah, I saw some of the results there, and Chris, the House of Hook was definitely hooked up on Saturday night. So that was good to see for Derek Hagar. I know the full series there didn't get as many races in as they wanted due to weather. Hopefully we get around that. Jackson Motor Speedway, your Capital City Raceway, going to be doing double features to make up for some. Couple this weekend and then a couple in another 2 weeks when the late models come back. But do what we can. Try and do that. You talked about, I know something I wanted to say earlier, you talked about Darrell Waltrip describing things. He sold me. He made you believe in the vortex theory. So get them cars out on the track and make the hot air rise and push the weather away. But you can follow me on Facebook, Michael Hoosman, and Mopar MJ8 on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. And I'm Fan4Racing Sharon, and I'm at Fan4Racing site on Twitter, Fan4Racing blog and radio over on Facebook. And of course, here on YouTube, we're Fan4Racing Radio. So we hope you guys had a good time tonight. I appreciate you guys being on the show. And we'll look forward to next Monday night when we'll be back again, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Pacific time. And I'm sure we'll have a whole new list of hot topics to talk about. Anything
All right. Have a good night.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.